Full and uncut versions available on Patreon. Check in the description below. Greetings once again, Pokemaniacs. Duuz-Diz-Din back again with more of the Pokemon Adventures manga, where previously we had the continued adventures of the Pokemon trainer Yellow, who is on the search for Red, who has gone missing because of the Elite Four, specifically their member Bruna. However, it is Agatha who seems to be instigating a lot of the goings-on, getting a Pokemon trainer known as Super Nerd Miles to try to kidnap Pikachu at the behest of Agatha. And while Yellow does manage to come up with a plan to defeat him, it comes at the cost of her getting beaten down herself. But when Agatha tries to use Miles's possessed body, possessed by a Ghastly, against the good gym leaders who arrive on the scene to help, it is Blue who ultimately manages to take the Ghastly down. But during the battle, Yellow's kindness and sympathy for Pokemon is shown when she tries to save a nearby Caterpie who is almost caught up in the fray. While Blue doesn't look down on her want to save Pokemon, he does find that it comes at too much of a risk to her own well-being, and if she should perish in the process, then what is the point? And so in order to grow stronger, Yellow asks Blue to train her, and he obliges, with both Misty and Brock giving over two of their Pokemon to help Yellow on her journey. As they fly off on Charizard, Blue informs Yellow of his first encounter with Agatha that happened 2 years ago, right before he had gone to the Indigo League tournament, arriving at a power plant where Zapdos was captured by Team Rocket. He helps out a young boy, Evan, get back his Haunter from the power plant where Agatha had been capturing many ghost Pokemon. It was a frightful encounter indeed, as Agatha, especially once she found out that she was Oak's grandson, went on the intensest of attacks. Blue had just barely managed to get out, having used a lot of his training from his younger days in order to take on the ghost Pokemon, something he couldn't have done beforehand, especially when he had visited Lavender Town. And so, Blue hopes to pass on at least some of his knowledge and expertise to Yellow, as something that Blue has learned all too well is that it's through others that we are able to grow ourselves. So, what will Yellow learn on this new leg of her journey? Join me as I find out, won't you? Alright, this is Volume 5. A nice little cover with Yellow and Blue and their Pokemon and the Caterpie. And it seems that, spoiler alert, Rattata evolves into Raticate. Interesting. It's just really interesting because, I'll be honest, I don't usually want Rattata. It's just, no thank you. But of course they were setting up that Caterpie joining Yellow eventually, but let's jump into the volume. Ooh, that's also a nice little cover spread. Yeah, we've met 3 of the 4 members of the Elite Four now. I'm glad the 4 good Pokemon trainers still have a role to play. I wonder if we'll have, gym leaders. I do wonder if any of the other gym leaders will come back in any capacity though. Hey Bill. Alright, we pick up in a more desert-like area. Oh god. Blue's gonna train Yellow like he's Piccolo training Gohan. Yellow and Pikachu wake up with a yawn, and Yellow gives Pikachu a squeeze saying, "Good morning, Pikachu." Yep, I followed Blue to this place just to get him to train me. Yellow and Pikachu glance around as Yellow says, "So where the heck is he?" Yellow points her head out from behind some rocks saying, "Yesterday he was sleeping over there somewhere." It's chapter 53. Can't catch Caterpie. Love that alliteration. Yellow does indeed spot Blue, just standing, meditating. Yellow thinks, what's he up to? But Yellow and Pikachu then spot a boulder rolling towards him, conveniently. As the boulder hurtles towards the Blue, Yellow shouts, "A falling boulder!" And suddenly the boulder is lit ablaze, and Yellow panics even more, saying, "What's happening? Blue, watch out!" And as the boulder nears, Blue does a bit of a quick draw with one of his Pokeballs. Oh, what the hell? That's kind of metal. And suddenly, the boulder is sliced into several cube-like pieces by Scyther. And, ooh, I gotta tell you, getting to see one of my favorite Gen 1 Pokemon get to shine like that, Scyther just coming out being a badass. It's good to see. You love to see it. Yellow and Pikachu are completely shocked by the display as the cube-like pieces fall around Blue, missing him entirely. Something is crawling up above on a nearby plateau. Oh, it's Charizard. As Blue calls out, "One more hit, Charizard." Yellow flops to the ground with Pikachu in surprise, saying, He's training? I don't believe it." Yellow calls out, "Blue, excuse me, you teach me how to train too." But Blue ignores her, saying, "Charizard." And as Blue goes back to having Scyther cut up the boulders, Yellow says, maybe he means I should just watch and learn. But suddenly there's a rustling in the nearby brush that Yellow notices. As Yellow turns, he sees Caterpie saying, "Hey, you're the Pokemon from Celadon City. What are you doing all the way out here?" Blue thinks that Caterpie, so following the one who saved its life, eh? Blue takes a moment to think, and then tells Yellow, "Try to capture that Pokemon with one of your own. Then you can begin training in towards a higher level." Yellow says, "Okay." As Blue turns away, Yellow takes out one of her Pokeballs, saying, "I can do this," and brings out Rattata, saying, "Come on, Ratty." Which I gotta say, that's a kind of unfortunate name, but I mean, hey, it's and what it's called, Rattata. Blue says that Blue thinks to himself, that Caterpie seems to have taken a liking to this Yellow kid. It may prove very useful if we can evolve it to its final stage, but that if depends on whether this Yellow has what it takes to be a trainer. Training is serious business. Night falls, and Blue is camping with a tin of beans over an open fire with his gold duck. And Pidgeotto? Yeah, Blue says to himself, if he'd been able to capture it this morning, he could have spent the whole day increasing his power level. Given how quickly a Caterpie evolves, he might already have a Metapod by now. Blue heads over to where Yellow is and is shocked to see Yellow and Rattata kind of beaten up. Yellow turns to Blue saying, "As of now, I gotta call for help." Wait, what? Blue staggers a bit, aghast, as Yellow says, "I don't think I'm cut out for capturing. I mean, you have to hurt it first, right? I just can't bring myself to do it." The Caterpie also seems a little bit panicked, like, don't you want to catch me? I'm just a little guy. It's so adorable. Yellow says, "I've been practicing to see if there's any way to capture him without a battle. When I fought those Pokemon to save those people, I was just acting out of desperation." Thinking back to when Yellow tried to capture that, what was Yellow trying to capture back then? Was it a Sea King? It was something that Yellow was trying to capture without, actually battling it. Yeah, believe me, if you don't at least lower its level a little bit, I mean, sometimes you can get lucky. There have been a few times, but you gotta at least get it down a little bit, at least in the Yellow. Blue's mouth is agape as he thinks, after one whole day, can't even catch a Caterpie. Which is also kind of funny because we've seen in the Pokemon anime that sometimes if the Pokemon wants it, you can just be like, boop, doo, and there you go. I'm sorry, Yellow, you might be in the wrong series. Yellow turns to Blue saying, "What do I do?" Blue turns away angrily saying, "Just demonstrate an attack. What does Rattata use?" Yellow turns to Rattata, just inquisitively saying, well, Blue is shocked again, thinking to himself, it's his Pokemon. How can he not know? Cut to a montage of Blue just berating Yellow and then commanding her. It's actually kind of adorable. You don't see him that flustered most of the time, so it's fun. Even with Red, Blue never got that just like, "What are you doing, kid?" And so, after a day of shenanigans, Caterpie is finally caught. Even Pikachu seems to be like, "Kid, the heck?" Yellow peeks up Caterpie, who is merrily in its ball, saying, "We did it." Blue, still kind of steaming, says, "Okay, I know you're keeping Pikachu for Red, but how did you capture Rattata and Doduo?" Yellow says, "Well, with Ratty, just like you did for me now. there was someone there to tell me what to do, and I kind of got Doduo from someone else. Blue turns to the Pokemon saying, these are the only 3 you have. Oh, is Rattata evolving? Just from that? Shoot, what level does Rattata evolve in Eradicate? Level 20? Jesus. Okay, yeah, I guess after that last battle they had with Super Nerd Miles, it got some levels, and then from this battle with the Caterpie, okay. As Rattata starts to vibrate violently, kind of looks like he's having a seizure, jeez. Yellow says, Blue, something's wrong with Ratty. Blue says, you have Red's Pokedex, don't you? Open it. Blue says, apparently, it's maxed out at this level. As the Pokedex reads, what? Ratty is evolving. As Yellow questions this, Blue says its power level must have shot up because you've been battling with it so much lately. Once it evolves, it can learn more attacks, thus being much more useful in battle. Blue says as he turns to his Charizard, which, right, Charizard is also here. I was more focused on the badass Scyther. And Blue really does have some of my favorite Pokemon. Charizard. Yellow turns to Blue saying, what's evolve? Like a bumpkin from the stick. Blue is even more shocked than before, just turning to her like he's almost breaking his neck with how fast he turns. And as Rattata starts to evolve, Yellow is shocked as oh no. Rattata turns into Raticate. Yellow says, Ratty, no. And Yellow begins to say, Blue peeks in over at her, and then she starts crying, just sobbing her eyes out. Blue turns away, even more aghast, saying, this has gotta be a practical joke. A trainer who starts bawling when his Pokemon evolves? What else could this fool possibly... And then Yellow's asleep. Just conked out right then and there. Ugh. This is a girl who has no business being... she should have been a Pokemon coordinator. I was having a discussion before, just like, Yellow seems like she would have been better off being a Pokemon coordinator. Blue thinks, yes, well, I suppose I should have guessed. The next day, Yellow is up with Raticate. God, I just love Raticate's little freaky mouth and stuff. I will admit, Raticate looks a little bit cuter than I'm used to them being, but I do miss it being a Rattata. Yellow says, sorry about last night. It's just that I never knew Pokemon were supposed to evolve, so when all of a sudden Ratty started changing, anyway, Blue doesn't respond, but Yellow says with determination, but it doesn't matter what it looks like. Ratty is Ratty. I won't let it bother me anymore. So what you're saying is Ratty is ugly. It's like, oh no, he's ugly. Because that's the vibe it gives off. A child bawling because it's like, oh no, he's not cute anymore. Blue says, if you really don't want a Pokemon to evolve, all you have to do is cancel it. Yellow is shocked as Blue says, when it starts to shudder like it did yesterday, open the Pokedex and hit the cancel button. The poll submitted from the Pokedex will stop the evolution. One of the privileges of having a Pokedex. Oh, that's interesting. You could only do that because of a Pokedex. But in the anime, usually it's something that a Pokemon chooses not to do. I've never actually seen a trainer kind of command its Pokemon, at least in the anime, not to evolve. But it's an interesting thing that it's the Pokédex that allows you to keep your Pokemon from evolving. Because, the way I've always seen it, it's that in the earlier days, the Pokédex was a rarity. It was just starting to be developed. That's why it was important to go around cataloging all these Pokemon. But as time goes on, more and more people have Pokédexes. Or maybe it's only a privilege in certain areas with a certain starter town where a professor lives in. I wonder. That is a fascinating concept right there. Blue tells her, you don't know the first thing about Pokemon. You can't capture anything. You treat your Pokédex like a toy. Yellow tries to call out to Blue because he's kind of giving her the third degree, but Blue says, listen, if you're going to go up against the Elite Four, and you'd better decide, are you a trainer or not? Then we cut to Carice Island? Carice Island. I've never heard of this place. Oh, it's based on a place from Hey You Pikachu. Okay, that's cool. I remember that game from way back in the day. I never played it, but I've heard of it. Someone says, I swear, every time I visit, this island gets a bit creepier. Oh, it's Agatha. And she has the device that I will not try to name. The badge device thingy. Agatha says, then again, I'm one to talk, eh? Now then, fire, rock, grass, electric, poison, water, psychic. 7 trainer badges and 7 types of Pokemon. However, no one ever noticed this compartment made to contain the 8th badge. Okay, I did kind of wonder about that. I'm like, aren't there more badges than 7? But there was the compartment in the middle. Interesting. I feel like that wasn't always the thing, but you'll just go with it. Suddenly Lance approaches her from behind saying, and did you find the 8th badge that's supposed to go in the center, Agatha? Agatha says, so I'm not alone. Don't worry, Lance, my search is moving along just fine. And you? Lance turns away, and Agatha says, leaving so soon? Lance tells her, yes, I'm off to Vermilion. And he takes off on Aerodactyl? We pick up with Yellow picking up Caterpie saying, I'm gonna call you Kitty. Kitty. Oh boy. I love these nicknames. In chapter 54, Pidgeotto Pick Me Up, as Yellow tells Pikachu, got it, Pikachu? I need to go run a quick errand, so watch after Kitty while I'm gone. An errand? Kitty's still not used to all this, so I don't want it cooped up in a Pokeball. And as Yellow runs off, she thinks, besides, I want Kitty and Pika to become friends, teehee. Suddenly a leaf flows past Caterpie, and Caterpie is distracted by it, and Pikachu sees that Caterpie is about to walk itself over into a little pit. Pikachu dives into the pit, saving Caterpie, who just walks over him. Next, Caterpie is about to walk into a prickly patch, and Pikachu, much to the sacrifice of its own hands, pushes the prickly patches away. Pikachu then blows the leaf away, but next, Caterpie is just walking off into the distance at the whim of the leaf, so Pikachu gives chase, only for the leaf to spiral around and up, and as it does, Caterpie gets dizzy and passes out. Pikachu looks at the Caterpie and is happy that it seems to just be resting a bit. I love stuff like this. This is like one of the Pikachu shorts at the beginning of most Pokemon movies. Caterpie then wakes up saying, I'm hungry, I want food. Pikachu gestures to some nearby leaves, and as Caterpie takes a bite, he says, Patooey, yucky. Caterpie's stomach continues to growl, and Pikachu looks around. Geez. Caterpie has been being carried away by Pidgeotto, flanked by some Pidgey. Pikachu runs up on a nearby plateau and shocks Pidgeotto into submission, causing it to drop the Caterpie. Pikachu manages to catch Caterpie and then sees on the plateau a nearby bud of some sort. Caterpie munches down on that and regains his full-on sheen, revitalized from the food. Yub-dub-dub, thanks for the grub. Much to Pikachu's relief, now Yellow is back with the same kind of little buds, saying, I hear that a Caterpie's favorite food is the vermilion flower, so I went to get some. But since there aren't many plants or trees around here, it took me a whole day just to get this Yellow is taken off guard as she notices with a grin that Caterpie has one of those flowers right on its head as it sleeps next to Pikachu. Oh, that's so cute. We pick up in chapter 55, the Primate Directive. A week has passed since Yellow began training under somewhat reluctant Blue. We see Yellow throwing out her Raticade and having it trained by smashing boulders. She then calls out, okay, Doduo, and Doduo launches a boulder at Raticade, which Raticade manages to stop rather adeptly, breaking it like it was nothing. Yellow wipes the sweat away from her brow, saying, that's it, Dodie and Ratty. Blue is watching from a bit of a distance, thinking, in terms of battle skill, Yellow still has a ways to go, but his individual Pokemon have increased in their levels significantly. It's unfortunate, then, that Yellow still hates the idea of evolving them, training so they'll be able to win in their present states. Well, it's no business of mine. Yellow then brings out Graveler and Omanite, and as she looks through the Pokédex, they start just kind of running away. Yellow calls out, "Hey, wait up, you guys," as Blue just watches on silently. As she manages to wrangle in the Omanite and Graveler, she says, "Oh, that's right, I must yell out a command." So the attacks these two know are, as she fiddles around with the Pokédex, she says, wrong button. Which one is it? And then they've run away again. As she calls out, "Wait, stop." Blue thinks to himself, this may take a while. Still, those Pokemon once belonged to gym leaders. Once we've worked this out, they'll be great assets in battle, he says, right up until he sees Omanite blasting Yellow with water and Graveler chucking a few rocks at her. He then silently palms his head in his hand, saying, "Although I may be getting ahead of myself." We then cut to the Cinnabar Island gym, where Blaine, is analyzing Super Nerd Mile, saying the bodysuit that this man was wearing repelled even Pika's electric attack. We see Super Nerd Miles in a weird containment device as Blaine is analyzing a fabric from his weird bodysuit. Blaine explains this electricity repelling magnetism is the same insulating system invented by Team Rocket. I remember seeing something like this when I worked with them. Then this super nerd, which still love the fact that they call him a super nerd, did find an article of clothing where Red fought his last battle, because Red himself was wearing insulating gloves that he'd stolen from Team Rocket. Oh yeah. The gloves coming back into play. By finding that shred of Red's clothing, our opponent gained two weapons, the electrical insulation and the scent that deceived Pikachu. The question now is whether we'll be able to find any clues besides this shred of clothing from Mount Moon that we found on the battlefield. Blaine then looks at a readout showing Mount Moon and Brock nearby. Blaine thinks to himself, "We're counting on you, Brock." We then see Brock traveling through the mountains with a ring of Geodudes surrounding him. Yellow continues to look through the Pokédex, saying, sleeping Pokemon Snorlax. Type, normal. Attacks, double-edged and hardened. Yellow begins to sketch out Snorlax, then starts to kind of get a little freaked out, saying, ay, my head hurt. Blue says I must learn all the information Red gathered into his Pokédex, but there's just so much. Next, Eevee, the evolution Pokemon. This is a capture screen. I never knew Red actually caught an Eevee. Oh yeah, it's one of the Pokemon he didn't have on hand when he was going out. Meanwhile, Blue is off, motioning towards the ground. He thinks to himself, just as I thought, the erosion of the land is severe here. This place had some plant life at least. The last time I passed through, did the industrial pollution from the factory region spread this far? That's funny because there was always the talk of the industrial pollution going around and stuff like that, but it was never really a hard-hitting thing. A figure appears behind Blue and Yellow. Blue seems to sense it, saying a present, but Yellow suddenly calls out, "Blue, we have trouble," as they're suddenly surrounded by a bunch of Mankey, like a friggin' horde. Blue says, "Mankey, when they stalk like this, it usually means they're very hungry." Yellow questions, "Hungry?" Blue says, "It's a whole troop on the move. Their food supply has been dwindling at an alarming rate. At this point, they'll eat just about anything and everybody." Yep, as the Mankey jump towards Yellow, Blue says, "This'll be a great test for you. Break the line." Yellow brings out her Pokemon, saying, okay. Blue has his Golduck use Hydro Pump, while he has Pidgeotto use Wing Attack in order to blast back the Mankey. Blue then looks to Yellow, who is fighting with her Raticate and Pikachu, as Blue says, "He's got a fighter's heart, but we'll get nowhere like this. Look, Yellow, do you see that Primeape sitting alone away from the battle? Can you lure it away from the group?" Yellow says, "What?" Blue says, "That's the pack leader. I'll take the rest. When you get far enough away, open your Pokédex. Got it?" Yellow says, "I got it." And she brings out her Doduo and goes leaping over the horde of Mankey, going straight towards the Primeape. She has Doduo just peck at the Mankey, which enrages it, having it chase after her as she runs off on Doduo. The Mankey are now confused what to do without their leader, as Blue says, "I was right. Without the Primate's commands, the pack is confused." Oh, what the heck is this? Blue says, "Now," as both he and Yellow bring out their Pokédex, which seemed to fire off some kind of weird beam-like thing, which I don't remember Pokedex being able to do that. As the primate leaps towards Yellow and goes in for a punch, Yellow is suddenly protected by Porygon, who uses Tri-Beam on the primate, downing it instantly. Blue tells Yellow, who's shocked from everything that went on, that was the Tri-Attack. First time I tried it. Good thing Porygon's electronic beam transfer worked, which that sounds like a bunch of made-up BS, but I'll go with it. Blue explains that Porygon is essentially a living computer program, making use of the fact that it can move through cyberspace. I transferred it from one Pokédex to another. That kind of functions how Rotom later in Pokemon games is essentially a digital entity too, but it can mostly function in anything that is electronic and even possess it, since it's also an electric ghost type. Seeing its leader down, the Mankey flee. As Blue says, with its leader defeated, the pack can only flee. He thinks to himself, but they'll regroup. I didn't deliver a critical hit. He then comes over to Yellow saying, you moved pretty well. Real battle is definitely the best trained. But he pauses as he sees Yellow using her special abilities to heal the primate. Blue thinks to himself, this is what my grandfather was talking about. And as the primate is now a little bit healed, Yellow says, you had to find food for all of your pack, didn't you, poor thing? As Yellow tends to the primate, Blue thinks, man lives by destroying. This wasteland is another reminder of that. But you, Yellow, you have the power to heal. There are a myriad of special talents amongst the many trainers, skill in controlling Pokemon, and knowledge of attack, but yours may be the one that surpasses them all. That's pretty high praise, all things considered. As Yellow has the primate return to its pack, who are overjoyed that their leader is safe. Later on, we cut to the nearby ocean side, where Yellow is telling Blue, I would love to learn more from you, but I think I might become too dependent, so I've decided to go on alone. Thanks for everything. I was kind of wondering how long this was going to last, but, well, I mean, he did what he could. At least I understand much more about the reality of battles now. Blue then blings out his gold duck and does his usual surfing thing on the Pokemon, as he says, pointing in the distance, the best way to get anywhere from here is by sea. You can't surf yet, right? So use the passenger boat over there. Oh, it's the SS Anne. Yellow says, okay. And as Blue thinks to himself, how strong you become is up to you, Yellow. He takes off. Yellow waving at him, saying, see you later, Blue. And Blue, he doesn't really acknowledge her, but he departs with a smile as the SS Anne takes off as well. He then brings out a message in a tube and then brings out Pidgeot, telling it, take this to my grandfather. And Pidgeot flies. We then cut to Hitmonlee breaking rocks with its feet. Bruno then recalls his Pokemon as Lorelei, once again watching from a nearby rock, says elasticity not only in the legs but in the arms. A special ability for that one, Hitmonlee, thanks to Bruno's training. We then cut back to aboard the SS Anne, where the narration reads, the SS Anne, rescued by the gym leaders of justice from servitude as a smuggling vessel for Team Rocket, she sails once again as a carrier for good people's dream, which I feel is a little bit much for a cruise liner, but whatever. As Yellow's on the deck of the ship with Pikachu on her hat, she says, just don't fall. I gained a lot of confidence training with Blue. When I get to Vermilion City, maybe I will finally be bold enough to team up with him. With Red. It's chapter 56, The Coming of Slowpoke, eventually. Yellow turns to her Pikachu saying, ready, Pika? We then cut to a third-class cabin where we see the chairman of the Pokemon fan club, who says, ho ho ho, magnificent, magnificent, Mirmu. I think I'm going to faint. Has it really already been 2 years ever since I saw that spine-tingling struggle? I've been under the spell of Pokemon battle. And finally, the attack's been perfected. He brings out a Pharaoh and a Rapidash, which I'm kind of surprised that he brought out because he didn't like evolving Pokemon, but I guess he's gotten into the swing of things. And he has them both use Payday. Oh God, really? He says to himself, the Payday mastered at last through training on top of grueling training. Normally attacks specific to Pokemon like Meowth. We have swapped and bled to make it odd. And now, and he picks up all the coins like a greedy little miser. We've saved up our money bit by bit. until we could afford a voyage on the SS Anne. This is our day of triumph, escape from poverty. Which I've always wondered how that move impacts the economy of this world, but whatever. The sound of the SS Anne's horn bellows in the distance as the chairman says, "The music of the ship's horn. Hooray for the SS Anne." We then cut over to the engine room where, some familiar figures are tinkering around in the engine room. One says, "It's done." Another says, "All that's left is confusion." As Yellow walks the deck yawning, she says, "Whew, I am so sleepy." She then turns, seeing the three figures making their way out of the engine room. She thinks to herself, what is this? As suddenly, smoke starts coming out of the engine at an intense rate. And suddenly, the boat lurches and jerks. And just, wow, the whole rear end just plunges into the water, sending everyone careening. And they just keep sinking the SS Anne, whether it be the anime or the manga. Hey, did it happen in the game as well? I actually don't remember if it happened in the game too. But then again, I remember that in the game, you board the SS Anne, but you get off before it departs. But once you get to the Johto series, it's a way of traveling from Johto to Kanto. So no, the SS Anne, I don't think it ever actually sank, at least as far as I can remember. But this one certainly is. As the passengers all go careening as the boat plummets into the sea, you see the chairman sliding down the deck saying, "What's happening?" One of the people on board the ship says, "Everyone, stay calm, stay calm." And as Yellow clings to the railing, she says, "This is no accident. We're so close to harbor. Pika, go." And Pikachu dashes down the deck. The chairman is also trying to cling to the railing, saying, "This can't be happening to my precious SS Anne. He can't sink." He tries to make his way down the deck, saying, "I'm not going to just let it happen. I'm going to get to the bottom of this." We then cut to the engine room, where Yellow is looking around, saying, "Someone sabotaged the engine room. Destruction by time bomb and a psychic attack." As she looks around, the chairman enters and is shocked to see her present, as he says, "As I thought, a fiend has destroyed the engine room. Well then, take that, payday." And he brings out Farah and Rapidash, who toss coins at her. And she says, "What do you think you're doing?" The chairman says, "Disgraceful. To think that a mere child could be the culprit. But I can't forgive anyone who harms my beloved ship." As Yellow continues to be pelted with coins, she says, "Yeah, hey, you've got it wrong." Ouch, he's not listening. But the boat once again lurches, catching the two off guard. And the chairman says, "Whoop," as he falls over the edge of where he was standing. Yellow says, "Watch out." And the chairman is saved by Pikachu, who, I don't really know how that works, but he manages to grab the chairman, who's like 3 times his size. Yellow says, "Pika, good work, Pika." But Yellow notices water pooling around her knees, saying, "Flooding. There's a hole in the ship. Omni." And she brings out Omnanite and has it use Ice Beam to patch up the hole. Yellow says yes, as the Pokemon chairman gasps in amazement at her skills. Yellow says, "Pika, fill me in." And Pikachu takes a moment to let Yellow use her ability to read his mind. Yellow calls out, "The passengers are in danger too. You must hurry and go above." But the chairman right next to her says, "Oh ho, you said Pika. Ho ho. Could this be the Pika that belongs to our famous Pokemon fan club member Red?" Yellow turns, saying, You know who Red is? Is he?" But once again, the boat lurches and sends them flying up, hitting the ground hard. Yellow says, "I think we'll have to talk later. To the deck now, hurry." The chairman says, "Deck?" We then have the 3 members of Team Rocket, whose names I care not to remember, saying, "Ha ha, don't tell us you forgot about Team Rocket." The conductor and the passengers on the ship say, "It can't be. They were annihilated 2 years ago." The members of Team Rocket say, "It isn't that easy. We will concede that we were defeated by 3 Pokemon trainers from Pallet Town 2 years ago. And that's putting it lightly. 3 Pokemon trainers, 4 gym leaders, 3 gym leaders, and the friggin' battle-hardened citizens of, Celadon? Cerulean City? Wherever Erica's from. Along with our supreme leader and the leadership triad. but our surviving forces have been waiting all over the region for the chance to rise up again. Yeah, we know that leads up into the gold and silver games. The citizens say, surviving forces? The members of Team Rocket say, didn't you know that originally there were 3 squadrons organized for each of the triad by 3 elite squadron leaders? Which would make us, can you guess, the leaders of those squadrons. In short, Team Rocket's elite. And in retaking the SSN, we will let our resurgence, our resurrection, be known throughout the world. As they all strike poses. What a bunch of mooks. The chairman, watching from the side with Yellow, says, oh no, we're up against Team Rocket. But as Yellow steps out, Chairman says, hey you, wait. Yellow calls out, you will not get away with this. And as the triad turn, they see the lone child. But they've been beaten by children before. Why should this be any different? The members of Rocket say, and who are you? But as Yellow gives them a confident look, they all recoil a little bit, probably having flashbacks to being beaten by children before. Yellow says, I wonder if I'll be able to see the results of being trained by Blue. As she brings out all of her Pokemon, the chairman and the crowd of people gasp as the triad turns to themselves. The chairman says, even I could see that motley Poke crew doesn't stand a chance. And as we have the standoff, Yellow rushes in with all of her Pokemon shouting, attack! The triad say, those are our opponents? This will be amusing. One brings out Ekans and Weezing. Another brings out Hypno and Slowpoke, while the third brings out Voltorb and Electrode. Okay, so it's a 6-on-6 clash. Pretty good. The members of Team Rocket say, who is this stupid kid? Alright, we pick up in chapter 57. Ekans the Ecstasy, which I don't like the way that sounds, but whatever. Yellow calls out, I am Amarillo. They call me Yellow, which I don't know if that's as interesting as she thinks it sounds, but Graveler, Almanite, Raticate, and Caterpie all dash off in different directions. The Rocket Triad question, what the? Well, the chairman can barely look, saying, instead of attacking, they're scattering? Raticate and Caterpie face off with Weezing and Ekans. Graveler and Almanite face off with Slowpoke and Drowsy? Yeah, Drowsy. Oh, Hypno. There we go, Hypno. All the Rocket Triad say, not that way. You won't escape that way either. Let's have a little battle, shall we? As Voltorb and Electrode face off with Doduo and Pikachu. The Rocket Triad tells Electrode and Voltorb to use Swift. Yellow says, Doduo, dodge them, Doduo. The Rocket member says, did you really think that Doduo was faster than a Voltorb? But the boat lurches once again as it continues to sink, with the chairman saying, hey, quit rocking the boat. Yellow calls out, wait, I have to do something about the passengers. But the Team Rocket member, he has Voltorb and Electrode use Sonic Boom. Yellow calls out, Doduo, attack. Whirlwind. And weirdly enough, Doduo unleashes a whirlwind from its mouth that manages to cause the Ekans, Weezing, Hypno, and Slowpoke to all get dizzy as the other Pokemon dive over the edge, with the Rocket Triad saying, hey, stop them. They got away. The other member says, what difference does it make? Those Pokemon are nothing anyway. And that means now we only have to deal with those two. Let's sink the ship and all the passengers with it, Slowpoke. Give them another dose of confusion. And now the boat is fully just upright, with its bow completely sticking up as the boat continues to sink. The passengers being flung into the water, yelling. Yellow does her best to hold onto the railing, while the Rocket Triad is kept aloft by Hypno, saying, Hypno, meditate to lift us out of here. Now we're safe. The chairman, holding onto the railing, says, can't hold on any longer. And as he slips, falling into the sea, he screams, only to find himself being surrounded by something that keeps him upright. The Rocket Triad say, what? As Caterpie seems to be using string shot in order to save all the people. Oh, he's putting them in kind of flotation devices. The Rocket Triad say, that kid's Caterpie. There's so much thread around them that it's floating them like a lifesaver. Every last passenger we dumped into the sea is still floating. Oh, they were legit trying to kill these people. Yellow says, everyone, swim toward the harbor. The Triads say, I've heard of Caterpie's silk being used to make expensive woven fabric, but this is ridiculous. Why are my feet so cold? As we see that their legs have all been frozen, including the Hypno, saying our legs are frozen. The Omnanite's Ice Beam. Hypno, attack. No, idiot, if Hypno attacks, who's going to keep us levitated? And as they begin to fall, they say, oh, there's that. Hypno, catch us. Yellow calls out the passengers are all safely at the docks. I'm the only one on the boat. Care to give up? And as all three of the rocket members fall into the sea, one pops up saying, give up. Ha! Ekans, wheezing. And as the two go in to attack Yellow, which is actually kind of interesting considering those are Jesse and James's usual Pokemon, but those are the usual Pokemon for the bad guys. He commands Ekans to use acid and Wheezing to use sludge. Yellow does her best to dive out of the way as another of the Rocket Triad says, you're all going down. Enter Graveler, who manages to catch Yellow and Doduo, as well as Pikachu. Yellow says, that way, Gravy. Okay, Pika, Thunder Shock. And Pikachu shocks Wheezing and Ekans as a Rocket Triad member says, no, my Ekans, my Wheezing. Another one says, do you hear? While the other calls out, oh no. Where'd that Raticate come from? As we see Raticate chewing through the entire hull of the ship. Jeez. As the top half just breaks off falling on top, which, jeez, that one Pokemon is responsible for so much property damage. Oh, the ship was already going down. As the part of the ship begins to fall on the Rocket Triad, they brace themselves. But as it's halted by Graveler, Yellow calls out, will you give up yet? Or do I tell Gravy to let go? The Rocket members say, we give up. And Yellow smiles. We cut to Vermilion Harbor with all the people who were on board the ship watching as the SSN continues to sink. The chairman comes up to the now tied up Rocket Triad saying, now you scoundrels, Yellow is it? Do I have your permission to serve up the finishing blow? Yellow kind of panics saying, what? As the chairman has his Pokemon use Payday to just pummel the guys. And he then picks up the coins saying, I did it. I finally defeated some bad guys. By the way, how is Red doing? Yellow takes a moment saying, well, actually. And later the chairman says, you mean Red is missing? Yellow says he responded to a letter of challenge from someone and only Pika returned. Pika and I took the responsibility from Professor Oak to bring Red back, but we don't have any leads yet. The chairman says, I see. Yellow then shouts, I can't stand it. I need something to go on. You said you know him. Do you think of anything? The chairman turns away saying, I first met Red a little more than 2 years ago. At the time, he was, before I speak of that, I should tell you the legend surrounding Vermilion Harbor. Are you familiar with the Moonstone? Yellow says, yes, I am. It enables certain Pokemon to evolve. That one. The chairman says, that's the one. However, there are actually 4 other types of evolutionary stone. There is the Leaf Stone, which affects particular grass Pokemon, the Flame Stone for fire Pokemon, and similarly, the Water and the Thunderstone. You know that these stones normally disappear after one use, right? Yellow says yes. Chairman tells her, but somewhere they say are 4 very special stones that do not lose their power even after enabling a Pokemon to evolve. Many people have wanted them for a long time. According to local legend, Yellow, those very 4 stones lie at the bottom of Vermilion Harbor. As we enter chapter 58, the kindest of Tentacruel. Yellow says, and what connection does that have with Red? The chairman's taken off guard, thinking, is Red the only thing this child thinks about? I mean, dude, she's trying to save him. The chairman tells her, well, Yellow, the connection is this. For years, most people laughed off the legend of those stones until 2 years ago something happened that changed their mind, all thanks to Red. At the time of the incident, Red had just arrived at the sea with his Poliwhirl. The Poliwhirl saved his life then after quite suddenly becoming a Poliwrath. So I got to thinking maybe Poliwhirl encountered something in the water that evolved it. Maybe those 4 stones of evolution do lie at the bottom of the sea. And it turns out actually those were Professor Oak's words. Anyway, after that, Red went on to battle Giovanni, the leader of Team Rocket, and blah, 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 blah. Yellow only chimes in on saying, so they could be lying right down there. The keys to the power of evolving. She calls out to Pikachu and then brings out Caterpie saying, off we go. The chairman is taken off guard saying, wait, you're not thinking of going to get those stones. They're supposed to be inside a heavily guarded sanctuary. You can't just waltz in there. Are you listening to me? Well, if you must go, here's a little present. Just let me in on it when you find them, okay? as he hands over some coins. But Yellow is already taken off, saying, "Thanks for the information, sir. We're off to find them. And maybe they'll give us a hint that will lead us to Red," as she takes off as Caterpie has spun a life preserver made out of string. The chairman is just left with his hand full of coins. We then cut to beyond the harbor, where Yellow is floating on that life preserver with Caterpie using a string on the end of the fishing pole, and Pikachu on her hat, saying, "Well, glad that old man told me about this. I wish he told me there'd be so many Tentacool." But the Tentacool just kind of seem to be chilling. Yellow brings out her Pokédex, saying, "Why do they keep coming? Are they telling me not to trespass? I hope Omni is alright," as we see Omnanite in the Pokeball at the end of Yellow's lure, heading deeper and deeper into the water. Oh jeez. Yellow says, "Well, I guess I shouldn't have thought it would be easy." But deep inside the water, Omnanite is freaking out as a Tentacruel is floating next to it, and it's a biggin at that. They always make Tentacruel so huge, but then again, Omnanite's in the Pokeball. As the line at the end of Yellow's fishing rod starts to jerk, Yellow says, "Something's happening. Caterpie, extend the line." Okay, so Caterpie is helping to, take care of the line and all that. And Yellow tries to bring up Omnanite. She says, "Oh no, that's a Tentacruel. It must be their boss. You have to get Omni out of that ball." But Tentacruel manages to get Omnanite's Pokeball with a wrap attack. Yellow continues to try to fight against Tentacruel grabbing at the Pokeball, managing to bring Omnanite up, but the Tentacruel follows and begins to wrap its tendrils around both Yellow and Pikachu. As Yellow calls out, "Oh no, Pika!" They're both dragged into the water as Tentacruel brings them down further and further. Yellow then spots a little Tentacool trapped under a rock. Yellow thinks, a baby Tentacool trapped under a boulder. So that's it. He came for my help. The Tentacruel nods, and I wouldn't recommend this, but Yellow brings out Graveler. As she says, "Graveler, I know you hate being underwater, but please. Rock Pokemon won't last long underwater, and neither will my breath." As Graveler goes to get the Tentacool out of underneath the boulder, Graveler manages to do it, as Yellow thinks yes, but she starts to suffocate under the water. She thinks the pain, it's too much. Have to get Graveler back into its ball, as she begins to pass out. But we then cut to an underwater cavern where Yellow starts to stir, surrounded by Pikachu, Omnanite, Tentacool, and Tentacruel. Yellow says, "Am I dead?" She then gasps as she lunges up, saying, "I can breathe. Why? How? But the Tentacool comes over to her, thankful, saying, "The baby. Thanks, I guess I'm the one who got rescued." But suddenly something's shining behind her as she sees a leaf stone on a little bit of a rock, saying, "Is that the evolutionary stone?" As she looks at it, she says, "This one looks kind of like a leaf stone." Just the one? The flame, thunder, and water stones are gone, including the one that made Red's Poliwhirl evolve. But that's okay. At least we got to see this incredible place. As she looks up at a weird pocket where all the Tentacruel can be seen floating through the water, she says, "The legendary Vermilion Underwater Dome," which, I've never heard about that before, but whatever. We then cut to the Pokemon Fan Club clubhouse, where the chairman says, "You mean the dome really exists? But 3 of the 4 stones are gone. And I was going to take them for myself secretly. That's not fair." While Yellow thinks to herself, who would have been able to steal them? Only a great trainer could get there and back alone. But why would he or she only take 3? Maybe the flame, water, and thunderstones were necessary for something, and the leaf stone wasn't. So they must have had flame, water, and electric Pokemon they wanted to evolve. Because there's no one Pokemon who would... Wait a minute. She then says Eevee, which is funny because this is before the leaf stone became a viable option for Eevee. She then says, "And the one trainer who has one of those very rare Eevee could Red be the one who took those stones from the ocean floor?" We now enter into the last chapter of this episode, where we pick up with the chairman in his swim trunks saying, "Ha ha." He dives into the water thinking, "I am one lucky old man. Who knows what treasure awaits me in that dome, and I'll have them all to myself." He then turns, seeing Tentacruel, saying, "Oh, you must be the Tentacruel. Yellow told me all about you. You must be here to escort me to the underwater dome, right?" The Tentacruel gets angry and knocks the chairman out of the water, saying, "Hey, What's wrong with me? Oh, we then pick up with a Green floating by on her Jigglypuff, saying, well, Yellow's matured quite a bit since the battle with Lorelei, but will it be enough when the Elite Four begin to get serious? That happy-go-lucky attitude may become a liability, and I'm still wondering how these two know each other. As Green lands in Chapter 59, Hitmonlee, baby, one more time, which is an absolutely terrible pun, but whatever. We're 59 for 59 at this point. Let's just keep it going. As Green lands, she says, I suspect I'll make my entrance soon. Oh, she's arrived at Bill's house, and she says, the Sea Cottage, home of the Pokemon expert Bill. It was his misfortune to get tangled up in that battle with Lorelei. Now that he's parted ways with Yellow, he should be here. As she jiggles the handle, she finds that the door is locked, which, I mean, who wouldn't lock the door to their home? And she says, not the trusting type. No matter. Oh, Ditto, would you please? And Ditto forms a key in order to break and enter into this man's house. Jeez. Well, she is a thief. As Ditto jimmies the lock, she says, okay, I'm sorry, Professor Oak, I'm breaking and entering again, but this time it's for a really good cause. Really. We see that Bill is sound asleep as Green and her Jigglypuff tiptoe through his house. She thinks to herself, asleep? Well, that's just fine. It's not him I'm interested in. It's this. As she comes upon the Pokemon transfer device, she accesses it, thinking, thanks to this system Bill invented, a lot of trainers have been storing Pokemon they're unable to carry and retrieving them when necessary, including you-know-who, of course. If I tap the records, anyone associated with a Pokemon transaction should come up. Bill then starts to stir unbeknownst to Green, and as he sees the light in his office on, he says, well, what the? He gets up brandishing a Pokemon ball, saying, well, thinking to himself, it's a burglar. Okay then. Green is too entrenched with the device, thinking, easier said than done. The program is pretty complicated. Maybe I should rethink this idea. If I explain what I'm after, maybe he'll be willing to help me. Meanwhile, Bill silently brings out his, Vulpix? What that is? A Vulpix? Yeah, that's Vulpix. As Bill thinks to himself, time to put my watch Vulpix to the test. Now go blow a little flame in that burglar's ears. Just don't melt my computer now. Take that. As he has Vulpix unleash a blast of fire towards Green. Green says, perfect timing. I was just gonna wake you up. As she brings out her massive Blastoise, which shocks Bill and his Vulpix. Cut to later, where both Bill and his Vulpix are tied up. As Bill says, Green, what the heck are you doing in my house? Green says, I'm so sorry, but would you have listened to what I have to say if I had just knocked on the door? Bill angrily says, of course I'll listen to you. Now untie me. Green says, can't do that. Bill questions, and why not? Green says, unless you really want a shower, I suggest you keep quiet. As Blastoise looms over Bill, Green explains, saying, I have a hunch that you're going to be the Elite Four's next target. I came here personally just to tell you that. Aren't I an angel? Though she thinks to herself, the least you could do is let me peek at your database. Bill says, you gotta be kidding. But Green tells him, it was just bad luck that you got in between Yellow and Lorelei. But people like that don't like to leave loose ends, darling. Bill says, wait a minute. How do you know about that fight? Green just bluntly tells him, why, I bugged Yellow's straw hat, of course. Not that Yellow has any idea. Bill is aghast as Green smiles, saying, not only that, but I'm the one who sent Yellow off on this little quest, which, thank you for endangering a small child, but, well, you're only 2 years apart, so whatever. I'm the one who said, don't give your real name, and I'm the one who threw you to a rope during the battle with Lorelei, when Lorelei was about to nail you, you see. The Elite Four are my enemies too, which I wonder how that happened. Oh, well, she's gonna explain. She says, 2 years ago, after the Pokemon League tournament, Red, Blue, and I went our separate ways, each one with a different goal. Red's goal was to further increase his Pokemon's level by accepting challenges from other trainers. Blue was to hone his skills as a wandering fighter to prepare for another match with Red, while mine, quite simply, was to find the person who controlled that bird that snatched me from my true home when I was just a child. Which leaves the question, did you ever check in with your parents after that? Like, hello? And Bill says, let me get this straight, Green. You think the people that kidnapped you way back when were the Elite Four? Green bluntly says, yes, but I'm far from having enough data on the Elite Four to be able to battle them effectively. That's why I've been, using Yellow as my learning aid. Bill thinks to himself, in other words, you're afraid to fight him alone. Green eyes down at Bill saying, now I could be your protector when the Elite Four come to attack you, Billy, but you'd have to do me a little favor. Bill questions, favor? Green gestures over to his transportation system, saying, as Bill says, the Pokemon transport system. Green nuzzles up to it, saying, all I want was a little peek at just a wee bit of user data. Bill says, no ma'am, not one bit. Showing a third party other users' personal data is absolutely, but Green says, you don't mind facing the Elite Four? Bill bites back saying, don't try to scare me. Green tells him, is the answer no, even if the data I want to research is red? Bill pauses saying, Green explains saying, right now we don't even know if he's still alive. All we have is his Pikachu returned from a battle and Red didn't. But if he is still alive, he'd probably want to replace his missing Pikachu with another Pokemon. Don't you think so? Bill nervously says, well, yeah, that could provide some clues, but I could be kicked out of the Pokemon Council for breaking the law. Green begs, saying, please, forget about your agenda and mine. For peace in all the regions, we need Red now. As she and all of her Pokemon beg. Obviously, she has an ulterior motive, but not sure what that could be at the moment. As Bill is untied, he puts on his jacket, saying, all right, I'll help you. Green squeals, thinking to herself, yes, I'll get a lot more than peace out of finding him. As Bill accesses his computer, he says, okay, Pokemon withdrawals are there. You're right, Green. Just like you said, one of Red's Pokemon was taken out of the box recently. Green says, can you tell which one? He tells her, Eevee. Green says, so, at least we know that Red is still alive. When and from which center was Eevee taken? Bill says, hang on, it looks like. But suddenly, there's a massive explosion that goes off behind them as the extended leg crashes through all of his transportation system. Bill turns saying, what the heck? The system. Green points over there as Hitmonlee's leg retracts. The two see Hitmonlee crouching on a nearby tree. As Green says, you see what I told you? You're being targeted already. Let's get it. As she blasts off with Blastoise, grabbing Bill in the process. Bill questions, me too? Sorry. Oh, Green says, sorry, you know too much now. As they blast off with Blastoise, which is still the funniest thing I've ever seen. Bill thinks to himself, something tells me I'm being tricked again. While Green thinks, and I was so close. Hitmonlee is dashing through the forest, and as they give chase, Bill says, so tell me, Green. Green questions, what? Bill asks, where is Yellow now? Green just from somewhere whips out her laptop, which says present location Vermilion City, point AV 800 kilometers. As Green says, hasn't moved from Vermilion City in a while, must be up to something. As we cat back to Vermilion City, seeing Yellow, but we'll pick up with what she is doing there in the next video. And so with that, this video has come to an end. We had Yellow in, getting her first taste of training, battling, evolving, a lot of the concepts that even Red himself was only just starting to learn. He was able to have a little bit more information though because of where he came from. Even though Yellow comes from the next town over, she wasn't really one to gain a lot of knowledge from the get-go. She came in green, as it were. The fact that Green is using her is a little bit dubious, but it's pretty right on the money. It's still kind of odd that they met up. How did Yellow encounter Green? That is the question. But, Yellow went into a situation the kind of situation that even Red himself would get into sometimes, and she handled her own pretty well, all things considered. So Blue's training really did pay off. Well, I get that they have to go their separate ways for now. It does leave me wondering, where is Red? Is he just out injured somewhere? The Elite Four say that they tend to finish the job, which they've not said in so many words, but seem to imply imply that they want to kill him. Which, killing a 13-year-old kid, I mean, I get it. That's what most anime and manga are all about, but dang. But where is he? Now, is he hiding out? Is he injured? Is he okay? Did they leave him in a situation where they thought he would be almost dead? Or did Bruno make it seem like he killed off Red, and he actually had a bit of mercy? I can't believe that all of the Elite Four are completely behind what they're doing right now, but you never know. But Yellow's continued journey is going on. Green has teamed up with Bill, but because of the destruction of the Pokemon transfer system, I am kind of left wondering, does that kind of hinder a lot of people who are trying to have their Pokemon transferred, or does he have some kind of backup somewhere? Never been fully clear on how that all worked, but we'll see. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the ride. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din, and I hope to see you later. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.